guys, welcome back to 428 Shibuya Scramble. This is TGA Gamer Girl signing on. So, last episode, we finished Minorikawa's story. He got the interview he wanted, Chaki's article looks good, and now they're about to get the story on this. We're continuing Achi. Because, again, Minorikawa's story ended, so we had to. The door opened, and the other lookout returned. Susumu says to come in. Achi nodded and strode inside. The scent of alcohol and cigarettes washed over him. Susumu sat on the sofa at the far end of the bar. It was where Achi used to sit back in the day. What do you want? Susumu said immediately. Achi walked up to him and then got down on his hands and knees. Huh? What are you doing down there? The hell is all this about? I need people to bring a guy down. I'm here to ask for your help. The crowd around him flew into an uproar. Peals of mocking laughter ran in Achi's ears. I know I have no right to ask you this, but please, I really need your help. Just some guy, huh? Who? He's an international terrorist trying to get his hands on some wonder drug for a killer virus. If we don't catch him, somebody I know is going to die. And that's not all. He might try to unleash the killer virus here in the city. Susumu burst out laughing. This some kind of joke? You all right in the head there, Achi? The other gang members followed his lead, unleashing another storm of mockery. The laughter continued for quite some time. Finally, Achi had had enough. Shut your damn mouths! He roared loud enough to quash the merriment echoing through the bar. Are you going to help me or not? Just give me your answer. He stared at Susumu right in the eye. Susumu leaned in close, peering down into Achi's face. Is that how you go about asking someone a favor? Susumu growled menacingly. If you have a problem with me kowtowing like this, you can apologize some other way. I can apologize some other way, all you want. But don't you care that I just told you Shibuya is in danger? Achi's voice was unwavering. But face it, Susumu. Isn't Shibuya the reason everyone here hangs out with each other? If you're telling me you don't want to keep our town safe, then I won't ask you guys for anything again. I withdraw my request. The two glared into each other's eyes. Then, before Susumu could reply, an odd man stepped between them. We don't need to jump because, sounds like you got an interesting story, he said. Mind letting me hear it too? You again? Didn't you already get your interview? Susumu rolled his eyes. I think Grobbles here might be telling the truth. The newcomer's face was all seriousness. It lines up with the information I have. Hey, Grobbles, you got a second? My name's not Grobbles, Achi growled. It's Achi. I'm Minoru Minorikawa, magazine reporter. And I know a bit about that stuff you're saying just now. The killer virus you mentioned is called the Ua virus. That wonder drug is an antiviral medication, and the person you know who might die is Maria Osawa. Am I right? Achi was almost too shocked for words. How do you know all that? Minorikawa ignored him and turned to the SOS leader, Susumu. He said, something really is going down in Shibuya. What are you going to do about it, boss? Susumu bit his lip. He looked pretty conflicted. Sounds good to me, someone called out. Let's give him a hand. Achi turned to see where the voice had come from. It was Kiryu. You shut up, Susumu said with a glare. Break out of your rut, old man, Kiryu sneered. Achi here is right. Isn't keeping our beloved Shibuya safe what SOS does? He slipped an arm around Achi's shoulders. You're okay with that, right, Achi? Me going against Susumu's orders to help you out? Kiryu's lips pulled back in a broad, unsettling grin. But first, we have an unfinished business, you and I. I mean, I'm willing to lend a hand even though you ditched the game and all. But first, you gotta settle our score, here and now. You understand, don't ya? Yeah, you're right. Kiryu grinned hungrily. It's guillotine time! A bunch of gang members started up an eager clamor at Kiryu's pronouncements. In a matter of moments, Achi was grabbed from all sides and hoisted up onto a pool table. A dozen young men held down his arms and legs, positioning him so his head jutted past the table's edge. Kiryu brought out a steel pipe nearly a meter long. It was caked liberally with dried blood. Guillotine! 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 The men of Kiryu's faction pumped their fists in the air, chanting madly. Kiryu licked his lips as if drunk off of their cheers. Glancing to one side, Achi saw Minorika was speaking emphatically to Susumu. It looked like the reporter was trying to talk some sense into the SOS leader. Man, today's my lucky day. I get to take the head of SOS's original head. Achi twisted his neck to peer up at him. Man, what point is there in taking my head right now? Oh, my. You don't get it, do you? See, if I send you to the hospital, everyone in Shibuya is going to know my name. And once I've got that big-ass sign over my head, I'll be able to unite this town under my banner in one fell swoop. Kiryu's eyes were crazed and bloodshot. Then that's all the more reason for you to do as I'm asking. If you want to unite Shibuya, you have to protect it first. But if you think you need to take my head to do that, then go right ahead. Even if these guys were all like Kiryu, if many of them actually showed up at the scramble, they'd be able to do far more than Achi could hope to do by himself. The ultimate goal was to capture Alphard. Achi didn't care how they made that happen. He was just sorry he wouldn't get to see it through, to protect Hitomi to the very end. Okay then, Kiryu prayed. The gloves are coming off! Go on, do it, he braced himself. Just make sure you keep your promise. Kiryu raised a steel pipe high above his head, and then before he brought it down, he flicked the tip of his tongue from his mouth like a snake. You dumbass, I didn't promise you nothing. Achi strained in sudden panic, but his limbs were pinned down too forcibly for him to have any hope of avoiding what was to come. But the steel pipe never struck home. Just when it was about to smash into Achi's head, Susumu grabbed hold of it. The hell you doing? Enough of this crap, Kiryu. Susumu yanked the pipe from Kiryu's grasp and tossed it onto the floor. Kiryu stood frozen in surprise. A vein pulsed angrily in his forehead. You guys too, Susumu added, glaring at the others. Let him go. The toughs holding Achi down cautiously took their hands away. Kiryu let out a red-faced cry of rage. But we got unfinished business! Ignoring him, Susumu helped Achi slide off the table. Every man gets to make one request in his life that cannot be denied. Do you remember saying that? The words stirred up some bitter memories within Achi. Yeah, I remember. But you didn't grant me my request. No, I guess not. That's why I'm going to heed yours, no questions asked. Susumu held out his right hand. Susumu? You are? That'll make me the better man. Finally. Achi reached out and clasped Susumu's hand in his. Yeah, Achi said, letting his relief show on his face. Quite the guy. Susumu cracked a tiny grin. It was the sort of smile Achi had seen all the time back when he'd run with SOS. Suddenly, Susumu staggered and dropped to the floor, falling too fast to even cry out. Kiryu had snatched the steel pipe back from the floor, striking Susumu from behind once his back was turned. To hell with this! He howled like a madman. SOS doesn't belong to you guys. Not anymore. I won't allow it. Achi didn't flinch. SOS doesn't belong to anyone, he said. It's not mine, it's not Susumu's, and it isn't yours. We're just a bunch of friends hanging out and having a good time. That's the only reason we get together. Nothing more, nothing less. He turned and looked slowly around the room. Hey, you guys! Do you all get together because someone told you to assemble? Do you get together to follow someone's orders? No, you don't. Of course you don't. The bar fell silent. Achi could see the young men who surrounded him exchanging glances. They could tell that his words rang true. Kiryu saw it too, and only made him more and more agitated. Shut up! Enough with the warm fuzzies! Abruptly, he charged forward, giving the steel pipe a mighty swing. Achi managed to dodge the attack by a mere hair. If it connected, the blow may well have knocked his head clean off. He quickly backed away. What's the matter? Kiryu taunted. How come all you do is run? The pipe crashed down onto the bar top. Bottles of beer and liquor smashed and scattered. Come on, what's the matter, Achi? Kiryu slammed his weapon into the pool table, sending balls scattered across the floor. Some of them collided with Susumu. Ugh! Susumu let out a faint groan. Smirking at the sound, Kiryu stalked toward him. Speaking of unfinished business! With a gleaming grin, Kiryu took aim at Susumu's head, lifting the pipe high up. Stop! Before he could think better of it, Achi was rushing for his fallen friend. You dumbass. Without missing a beat, Kiryu shifted his weight and swung the steel pipe at Achi's temple. Achi responded with a fast high kick with his right leg. The steel pipe connected hard with his shin, but it was Kiryu who was sent reeling off balance. Kya! Achi pivoted and put all his might into a straight right into Kiryu's jaw. The blow struck home. Kiryu's head snapped back and he crumpled to the floor. There was a momentary hush of indrawn breath. Then the bar erupted in a wild clamor that practically shook the whole building. All eyes were fixed on Achi, marveling at what they had just seen go down. Sounds like folks were hoping for a little more of a fight. Susumu got to his feet, his left hand clutching his right shoulder. You alright? Achi asked, mostly. Guess my shoulder took the brunt of the blow. The gang members from Kiryu's faction rushed to our unconscious leader's side. Achi shot them a steely glare, and they gathered up Kiryu and dragged him out of the bar. I didn't go too far, did I? Achi asked Susumu, is this going to cause trouble for you? Nah, I figured Kiryu would pull something like this eventually. It was just a question of when. Right. I'm sure he's going to go gather up his own bunch after this. We'll probably wind up butting heads again. Susumu didn't sound especially eager for that fight, but he didn't sound especially afraid of it either. Achi was still worried about a few things, but his friend had clearly grown as a leader. Anyhow, back to that story about you needing some manpower. Will the guys here be enough? There were around 30 gang members still in the bar. Achi looked at each of them in the eye in turn. He knew some of them from back in the day, while others were fresh faces. Was born and raised in this town. I'm fond of the friends I've met here, and this has always been a great place to have a good time. And today, right here in this town, I met someone who's very special to me. And I know this doesn't involve the rest of you, but I'm willing to protect her. Achi knew he wasn't doing a great job of getting to the point, but the members of SOS listened quietly. So, it's like, he felt like a grade schooler who didn't know the answer to a difficult question. He fussed with his hair and frowned sheepishly. Okay, so I'm not sure how to really put this, but Shibuya is a special town to me because of getting to meet people like that. And maybe... No, I mean, it's like that for you guys too. Don't you love Shibuya? So help me help this town. He bowed low and deep. I want to protect this girl who means so much to me. And the city that means so much to me as well. I know my answer. Susumu clapped a hand on Achi's shoulder. Listen up, everyone! SOS's original founder is back in action! He needs our help, and I for one am ready to follow him into battle! What do you say? Susumu's people let out a hearty cheer. When Achi marched back into his home, followed by 30 members of his old gang, Hitami and Kano were obviously overjoyed to see him. And there's the keep out unlocked for Kano. Their happiness raised his own spirits unexpectedly high. He felt a palpable sense of accomplishment. "Alright, detective," Achi shouted. "Let's do this!" His resounding cry echoed throughout the workroom, and the gang set out for the scramble. "What's the matter?" Hitami asked Achi as they made their way through the busy streets. "What's the matter with what?" "You look pretty pale." She peered good and hard into his face. "Do I know?" "Are you tired or something? I mean, you've kind of been going all out all day long after all." "Nah, it's nothing." Achi kept his voice nice and bright. "I'm just a little hungry, that's all. So don't worry about me, or Alphard, either, okay? I swear I'll keep you safe, Hitami." "Alright." Hitami gave a tiny nod. "Just leave it to me. Alphard's got nothing on this guy." He thumped his chest in a display of bravado, but he could feel his sweat beating on his brow. "Well, surprised you'd be nervous." When they reached the scramble, Achi took his place at the location specified by the battle plan Kano had drawn up. Hitami was only a few meters away. Whatever happened, he was in good position to shield her from harm. There were 3 minutes left until the appointed rendezvous. Achi wondered what sort of person was going to show up. Still, he knew he couldn't scan the crowd too much. He needed to act as naturally as possible so Alphard wouldn't be suspicious. He risked a glance over at Hitami. Maybe now wasn't the time for admiring, but he couldn't help but think how cute she looked. In some ways, seeing her there felt similar to when he'd first seen her that morning in the very same spot. The difference was that, this time, it wasn't just Hitami's good looks that made him find her so attractive. They might have only spent a few hours together, but in that time he'd learned a lot about her as a person. He knew what was important to her, what her worries were, her wants and desires. And also, he'd learned what a kind-hearted person she was. Achi recalled what happened back in the workroom. Even though her own life had been in danger all day, Hitami had shed tears for his father and his sister. She really understood people's grief and suffering. What do I do if I can't protect someone as good as her? Achi muttered under his breath, clutching his right leg. His shin was throbbing wickedly where the pipe had smashed against it. He'd been okay walking so far, but any intense fighting in the leg might just give out. He couldn't himself worry about that now. If it came down to it, he'd be a human shield to protect Hitami if he had to. Achi looked at his watch. Only 1 minute to go before 7 p.m. He glanced at Hitami, and saw her eyes widen with surprise. Quickly, he followed her gaze across the plaza. He spotted a tall white man approaching. Another keep out? I figured Achi's story would have ended. Or is it literally going to end as it started, with Kano and Achi? Hitami, I don't like having to do this, but we can't wait any longer. Seeing the look of determination on Kano's face, she gave a tiny reluctant nod. Her shoulders began to tremble. Hitami, I'll be alright. I'm just a little nervous, that's all. She had a right to be nervous. Alphard was after the antiviral that she had in her bloodstream. Once he had it, Hitami would become a liability that he'd want to dispose of. And right now, the only person who could keep her safe was Kano. He clenched his jaw tight and tried to look confident. Please, just try to relax. I'll protect you with my life if I have to. Protecting Hitami is my job. Achi, you're back! I said I'd see you through to the very end, didn't I? Yeah. Yeah, you did. Hitomi gazed back at Achi with grateful reassurance. Kano cleared his throat softly, but Achi and Hitomi continued to stare earnestly at one another. Eventually, the tough-looking man standing behind Achi spoke up. I've got 30. Will that be enough? Yeah, Kano nodded. That'll be fine. More importantly, have you heard what we'll be doing yet? Catch the bad guy and keep Shibuya safe. Same old thing that we always do. The guy flashed a grin. You got it, Kano said. We'll be counting on you then. With 30 odd people at their disposal, they'd be able to encircle the meeting area no problem. The preparations were all set. It was time to confront Alphard at last. Alright, detective, Achi shouted. Let's do this! Kano gave a firm nod. "9 minutes later, 6:59 p.m., Kano and the others were in position around the scramble. Each subtle tick of the second hand was like a sharp prod to Kano's nerves. His whole body was stiff with tension. They could not let themselves fail. There was too much at stake. Here, now, hundreds of thousands of lives are on the line. With Shibuya on lockdown, the area around the scramble had been seized by panic, and there had been multiple traffic collisions. The sidewalks were crowded with scared people, overturned cars, and abandoned motorcycles clogged the streets. Amidst the chaos, emergency vehicles sped by at furious speeds. But the fire and emergency personnel and even the police were short-handed. And the whole of Shibuya had begun to look like a war zone. The main roads had been blocked to normal traffic, and trains weren't stopping at the stations. In effect, the city was in a state of complete shutdown. Kano glanced again at his wristwatch. 6:59 p.m. in 10 seconds. 11, 12, 13, 14 seconds. He scarcely remembered to breathe. Hitomi stood in front of the statue of Hachiko. She wasn't carrying an attaché case this time, but the moment was otherwise a strange mirror of the stakeout at 10 o'clock that morning. She looked terrified. Kano couldn't blame her. The criminals weren't after some cakes full of money this time. This time, they were out for blood. Her blood. Kano did a slow scan of the area. Achi was standing not too far away. His companions were strewn about here and there, carrying on as normal. Here in Shibuya, those guys fit right in with the crowd. And they had the area around Hitomi completely surrounded. Yet again, Kano looked at his watch. 6:59 p.m., 35 seconds. 36, 37, 38, 39 seconds. He forced himself to take several deep breaths. He focused on the sound of his own heartbeat, and exhaled until all the breath was expelled from his lungs. And then, it all started. Kano's cell phone rang. I've got him. It was Daisuke, the organ trafficker who devised the kidnapping. It's him. Where is he? Kano asked. Is he close by? I've got him on camera now. He's on the other side of the intersection. Kano looked out across the scramble. There were so many people that it was hard to tell who was or wasn't suspicious. Can you describe him for me? The tall foreign guy. The one wearing glasses. A tall foreigner. Kano's eyes drifted over the crowd. No! Leyland! Oh God! It's Leyland! Ha, there he was. And as he got closer, Kano's eyes went wide. This man was someone he'd met before. Leyland Palmer, the lecturer from the English department at Hitomi Amaria's school. Is he Alphard? Palmer was walking right toward Hitomi. Hitomi didn't seem to have noticed him yet. When Kano glanced back at his wristwatch, it was 7 p.m. on the dot. When Hitomi realized Palmer was approaching her, she was too stunned to react. He walked directly up to her, the corners of his mouth curling up into a smile. "Hello, Hitomi," he said in English. "How are you doing?" "Professor Palmer? What are you doing here?" Hitomi's voice came out in an anxious squeak. Why, I'm here to take your blood, of course." This time he spoke Japanese, and with an easy fluency totally different from his usual manner of speech. "I'm the one who injected you with the UA virus." I'd been waiting so long for the opportunity to arise. It's been quite agonizing, you know, spending 6 months and more pretending to be a mild-mannered English lecturer. "Professor, you're Alphard, aren't you?" Let's get down to business, shall we? Neither of us have much time. Hitomi stiffened. "Please, tell me the laboratory password after I have your blood. It will only take a few seconds. I've got a device here that will make the extraction quite simple." "No way. The password first." "That would violate the terms we already negotiated." Hitomi and Palmer glared at one another. "All right," Hitomi said at last. Why don't you negotiate with Kanan then?" "Kanan?" Hitomi took her cell phone out and dialed. But the phone rang repeatedly, and Kanan did not pick up. "What's going on?" Hitomi's face went pale. "Come on, Kanan." Kano, standing near enough to overhear their conversation, grew increasingly anxious as he watched the pair stare at the phone. What was the right move here? Should he keep waiting? Oh, God. Oh, God. Let's see what happens if we wait for the call to go through first. But Kanan never answered. Has something happened to her and Tatano? Kano felt his heart pounding. Now then, shall I take what I came here for? Palmer took a step closer to Hitomi. Kano reacted instinctively. Freeze! He drew his gun and trained it on the criminal. Nearby pedestrians scattered in fear. Seizing the moment, Achi darted in to protect Hitomi, and there's the thing for his keep out? Palmer let out a tiny sigh. So you're breaking the terms we agreed upon, then? I don't negotiate with terrorists. Kano inched his way closer to his point of aim, never wavering. Hitomi, he shouted. Call Kanan again. Again, Hitomi dialed her cell phone. Palmer opened the attaché case he was carrying. One more move and I shoot, Kano shouted. But the terrorist ignored the warning, producing a set of small glass vessels from within the case. If you want to shoot me, then shoot me, he said, assuming you don't mind this getting scattered about. Is that? Surely you don't need me to explain. Stanley was right. Alphard had weaponized the virus. Doing his best to conceal his horror, Kano tried to sound defiant. How can I even know that's real? It was entirely possible this was all a bluff. Ah, indeed. These could all be a fake. Would you care to test that theory? Palmer flashed a coy smile. Handing out his fistful of vials, he began to tilt them slowly back and forth, letting them clink against each other. They were fake. No, maybe they were real. Kano couldn't quite decide. And he couldn't take any rash action if there was even the possibility these were the real thing. Did you come here to carry out a suicide attack on Mr. Alphard? Hardly. I have no desire to die here. All I want is to get a little of this girl's blood, and then go quietly on my way. But that all depends on you, doesn't it? His face was overflowing with confidence. Kano couldn't shake the feeling that something was off here. Something about this man's demeanor hinted at something. Well then, what will it be? Palmer continued. Will you condemn the people of Shibuya to death? Cursing inwardly, Kano lowered his gun. Palmer flashed a triumphant grin, then resumed his stroll toward Hitomi. She stood frozen on the spot. Suzumu! The shout had come from Achi. In an instant, a dozen members of SOS headed toward Palmer from all sides. Tough luck, pal, Suzumu said. Turns out we're not actually innocent bystanders. Now it was his turn to grin. You're completely surrounded. Give up and tell us the password now. And just for the record, we ain't scared of no virus. The tough-looking young men radiated bravado. Without hesitation, they closed in around the kidnapper. Surrounded? You certainly don't look like police. Palmer cast a bemused glance around himself. You're right about that, Achi said. I mean, just take a look. I gathered up a bunch of people who love Shibuya more than their own lives in order to take your ass down. He kept Hitomi shielded behind him while he spoke. There's no escape, he declared. You've lost. Lost? Me? Well, it sure doesn't look like you're gonna get away. Palmer grimaced at Achi's words. I see. Then it appears our negotiations are at a close. Enough with the high and mighty act. Suzumu stomped aggressively toward Palmer. Hey! Kano snapped. Easy now. They couldn't risk a scuffle sending the virus crashing to the ground. What a shame. Palmer swung his right arm up high. Everyone watched in dismay as his hand shot up. The vibes he'd been holding sailed upward against the backdrop of the evening sky. Look out! Achi shouted. Catch him! Catch him! A tremendous blast blew Kano off his feet. As he crashed to the pavement, extreme pain shot through his entire body. He knew at once that a bomb had gone off. But why? It didn't make any sense. Alphard had no intention of carrying out a suicidal terror attack. Kano was certain of that. If that had been his intent, he could have just done so at any time without going through the trouble of putting on this whole charade. Charade. Was there some reason this guy would blow himself up under these circumstances at this specific moment? As he lay dying, Kano had a thought. Could it be? Had Stanley not come to the scramble because he knew this was going to happen? Yeah, bad end. Hey, well... let's jump to Achi. See if that changes anything. Was this guy Alphard? The man arrived in front of Hitomi and began speaking to her. Hitomi, Maria, even Achi's father. This must be the guy who was responsible for everything. Achi felt a pressing urge to flatten him right then and there. Still, he knew he couldn't blow his cover until Kano gave the signal. Suppressing his raw emotions, he readied himself for action. Protecting Hitomi has to come first. I can't let anything happen to her. Why hasn't it happened yet? Why hasn't Kano given the signal? Freeze! Suddenly, Kano rushed forward, his gun drawn. Ignoring the pain in his leg, Achi dashed for Hitomi as fast as he could. He cut between Kano and Alphard, quickly pulling Hitomi out of danger. Hitomi! Kano shouted. Call Kanan again! Shielded by Achi now, she brought up her cell phone and dialed the number. But some time passed and there was no answer. Had there been some kind of trouble on Kanan's end? Looking increasingly worried, he told me he tried several more times. Then Alphard withdrew some strange vials from the attaché case he brought. Kano's face wavered with alarm. This had to be the terrorist's trump card then. Kano and Alphard were having some sort of debate. Achi couldn't hear the specifics, but tensions were clearly running high. Kano hesitantly lowered his gun. Alphard flashed a haughty, confident grin. Looks like it's time for our trump card. Susumu! Achi shouted at the top of his lungs. At his signal, the gang emerged from the crowd and moved en masse to hem Alphard in. Surrounded? Now the terrorist was visibly at a loss. You certainly don't look like police. You're right about that, Achi said. I mean, just take a look. I gathered up a bunch of people who love Shibuya more than their own lives in order to take your ass down. As he spoke, he made sure to keep Hitomi shielded behind him. The pain in his leg was getting worse and worse, but he tried his utmost not to let it show. There's no escape, he declared. You've lost. Lost? Me. Well, sure, it doesn't look like you're gonna get away. Alphard grimaced at Achi's words. I see. Then it appears our negotiations are out of close. Why do he still seem so confident? Something definitely didn't feel right. It's just a bluff. He knows he can't get away. He really doesn't care if he survives. Oh no. He was going to unleash the virus, except that would kill him too. Alphard met Achi's eyes. Seeing the haunted realization there, the terrorist flashed a wicked and triumphant grin. Enough with the high and mighty act, Susumu shouted. He began to stomp toward Alphard, but he didn't reach him in time. The vials in Alphard's hands went sailing into the air. Look out! Catch him! Catch him! Achi gestured for his comrades to fan out across the open space. Then, out of nowhere, a huge explosion blew Achi clean off his feet. His eardrums ruptured and his world was engulfed in an eerie silence, as if time had stopped. As he lay crumpled on the pavement, the one thing that still rang in his ears was the tinkling of glass as countless vials smashed on the concrete. That is another bad end, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. I can't. What? Let me try this. Oh my god, that changed everything! Once this is all over, you'll go have a beer with me. Sure, alright. Kano couldn't help but smile. That's a promise now. And with that, Stanley hurried out of the workroom. Why am I getting jumps to Stanley's story? Okay, I'm going to end the episode here. I'm really confused. So, till then, this is the Gamer Girl signing off. Bye-bye.